Hey everybody, this is a video overview of the knife on the table. And the knife on the table is a knife that I have quote unquote missed in terms of reviews. This is the Sage Lightweight, and the Sage is a knife that's probably 10 years old, and for whatever reason, I just never got a Sage. I didn't get the Sage 1 with the liner lock or the Sage 2 with the titanium frame lock. I skipped a bunch of them, and then you know what? I was just like, I haven't reviewed this knife. It looks like a good knife. Let's go and take a look at it. And so I picked it up. So this is a typical everyday commentary overview. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some size comparisons. I'm going to talk a little bit about the specs, and then I'm going to tell you what I like and don't like in anticipation of a full written review. And as with all the items that you see on the YouTube channel, eventually they make it into full reviews on the website. The website is really the hub of what I do with gear. You can also find me on Instagram and Twitter. And if you're watching this, you know you can find me on YouTube. So go take a look at the website. It's www.everydaycommentary.com. And you can see all the written reviews. I'm closing in on 500 written reviews, which is pretty good. So take a look what's over there. But let's do the size comparison first to the US American dollar. As you can see, when it's open, the knife is bigger than the American dollar. And as you can see, when it's closed, it's smaller than the American dollar. Really, really good, compact knife that's still not so compact that it's hard to do things with. The other thing that I wanted to show you is how thick it is. There it is compared to a double A battery. As you can see, it's significantly bigger than a double A battery. And it's just slightly not quite as tall as a double A battery. So let's talk about this knife. So there are a bunch of things you need to know. This is FRN, fiberglass reinforced nylon. The knife has a blade length of 3 inches. So from the front of the handle, the furthest point front of the handle to the tip of the knife is the best way to measure it. And that's the measurement specifications that most knife companies use, and it's also the one that AKTI recommends for law enforcement. So from this point here to this point here is exactly 3 inches. The sharpened blade length is, I think, around 2.5 or 2.6 inches. The knife weighs 2.7 ounces, which is pretty good for a knife of this size. As you can see, it has a deep carry over the top pocket clip. And the knife itself has a compression lock, and the compression lock is part of a handle setup that includes nested stainless steel skeletonized liners. Finally, this knife is Taichung made, and it has, as you can see right there, blade steel S30V, so CPM S30V, which is not my favorite blade steel, but it's fine. The knife, as with most of the knives in Spyderco's lineup, is a full flat ground knife, this being the Sage. You can see there, Sal Glasser's Maker's Mark. There is a Sage that is available in Maximet, and there is also a Sage Lightweight available in M4, but it's an exclusive for our Blade HQ. So if you want a Sage that's not S30V, you're going to have to go hunting. And I probably would not EDC a Maximet blade because, number one, it's virtually impossible to sharpen, and number two, it'll rust like crazy. So let's talk about this knife. The first thing I wanted to let you know about this knife is the action is really great. So the Sage 5 Lightweight includes a bushing. And the bushing makes the pivot just absolutely perfect. So you're popping this thing out every time. It's almost like assisted opening. And you can even get it to finger flick open if you need to. Of course, it'll Spidey drop all day long. And it's really, really nice in that regard. The knife also has the compression lock, as I said. And in case you're not familiar with the compression lock, which you really should be, it is a lock proprietary to Spyderco, and it involves a locking leaf that moves over and wedges the knife between the stop pin and the opening portion. So it can't close this way because of the compression lock, and it can't go this way because of the stop pin. So it's a lock that interacts with the tang of the blade, and instead of like a lockback that has a hook that goes into the spine of the blade. But the compression lock is really nice for a couple reasons. Number one, as you can see, it allows for the blade to swing freely when you depress the lock. So really smooth action. The other benefit of the compression lock is that you can lock and you can open and close the knife without putting your fingers in the blade path. What that means is, unlike in a liner lock where you have to go here and then you close the knife, there's really no chance you're going to accidentally close the knife on your fingers in this with this kind of lock, because your fingers don't go anywhere near the blade path. So let's talk about what I like about the knife. So first of all, it's kind of weird that I didn't review this knife. This knife hits like all kinds of things that I really like. It's thin, it's light, it's slicey, it's got good action, it's got decent steel, it's got a wire deep carry over the top pocket clip that's a wire clip. But one of the things that put me off on the lightweight, well, two things. Number one, it's very similar to the Chaparral. The Chaparral is a little smaller and a little thinner, so I tend to go smaller and thinner if I can. But the other thing that had me concerned about this knife was the liner, or the compression lock. The knife is very similar in size to something like the Para 3. And for me, the Para 3's handle is really eaten up by a lot of real estate dedicated to the compression lock. The other thing is the arrangement of the knife handle makes it so that opening and closing the knife, sometimes you pinch your fingers. And you can pinch your fingers. Like if you leave your hands like this, like that, you're going to pinch your fingers. But it's more prominent for whatever reason, and I think it has to do with the handle and blade shape on the Para 3 than it is here. In fact, other than times where I've tried to do it, I have never inadvertently pinched my fingers opening or closing the knife. Like, here's what would happen, right? You go here, and then the thing would pop out, and it could pinch your fat pad of your finger between the leaf spring and the liner over there. So it's never happened to me. Maybe it's just because of how I hold my hand or because of the shape of the knife, but it's much more comfortable. So this knife having a compression lock is better than the Para 3 having a compression lock, in that just through normal use, I've had none of the issues I had with the Para 3. So that is a great improvement in my mind. As I said, there's just a lot of things like bullet point spec sheet kind of stuff that you should like about this. The only thing that I don't really like about this knife is the price. I think I bought this on Amazon and it was $150. That's pretty expensive for an S30V blade. Now, this is a really well-made S30V blade. And as you can see, the knife is perfectly centered. The action is great. I've used this a lot. And it's fine, but there's no bling here. And in a world where Civivi is producing $50 knives with 14C28N and G10 handles that is just as finely made, this is not the most competitive offering in terms of price for what you get. So price times performance equals value. This is not a great value. That being said, most of Spyderco's knives are more expensive now. And so if you want a Spyderco, this is not significantly more expensive than a VG10 Delica. It's like, the VG10 Delica is coming in at like 90 or 95 bucks. This is coming in at like, 150, 140 bucks. This is a significantly better more ergonomic design than the Delica. It's got better blade steel. It's got a better clip. It's got a better lock. I mean, it's just a better knife. And so in many respects, this is the knife I think most people who are looking at Spyderco should start out with. This is where you should go first. The other issue that's weird is that if you go across the ocean, you can get an S35VN liner lock version of this in the Tenacious, which is a very similar knife. Not quite as ergonomic, but very similar design with better steel, and it's significantly less money. So even in the Spyderco lineup, this knife doesn't make a whole lot of sense for what they're asking. If this was a $90 Spyderco, this would be probably the best knife on the market, because at 90 bucks, all of those things that offset the steel choice, the design features, the lock, the clip, the thinness, the grind, all of those things sort of overwhelm the fact that it's just S30V. But this is a really, really good knife. It's an excellent EDC, and other than the price, there's not a lot to complain about. This is just a very, very solid design. So look for a full review of the Spyderco Sage 5 Lightweight coming soon on the website. And thanks.